The fluorescent lights hummed their usual Tuesday afternoon song as Marcus Chen stood at the copy machine, watching page after page of quarterly reports slide into the tray. His fingers drummed against the machine's warm surface, a nervous habit he'd developed over the past 6 months working at Meridian Holdings. At 32, with a 7-year-old daughter waiting for him at after-school care, Marcus had learned to keep his head down, do his work, and get home before the late pickup fees kicked in. The copy machine beeped its completion, and Marcus gathered the still-warm papers, straightening them with practiced efficiency. He glanced at his watch, 4:47 p.m. If he could get these reports to Miss Donovan's office and finish the data entry by 5:30, he'd make it to Little Scholars Academy by 6:15, just under the wire. But fate, as Marcus would soon discover, had written a very different ending to his Tuesday. Marcus navigated the hallways of Meridian Holdings' 7th floor with the kind of autopilot precision that comes from routine. Left at the water cooler, right past the conference room with the perpetually broken projector. Straight shot to the corner office where Alexandra Donovan ruled over the marketing department with an iron fist wrapped in Louboutin heels. The woman was a legend in the industry, 35 years old and already a senior vice president, with a track record of campaigns that had revived dying brands and launched startups into the stratosphere. Marcus had barely spoken to her beyond the occasional "yes, ma'am," and "right away, Miss Donovan" in the 6 months since he'd been hired as a junior analyst. Alexandra Donovan existed in a different universe, one of client dinners at restaurants Marcus couldn't pronounce, weekends in the Hamptons, and a social circle that appeared regularly in the society pages. Marcus's universe consisted of chicken nugget dinners, helping with second-grade homework, and counting pennies to make sure there was enough for Lily's field trip to the Science Museum. The door to Alexandra's office stood half open, and Marcus could hear the low, commanding tone of her voice on a phone call. He paused, uncertain whether to knock or wait. Alexandra's assistant, Patricia, had left early for a dental appointment, so there was no gatekeeper to navigate. "Don't care what Richmond says, the campaign launches Monday and it will be perfect." Alexandra's voice carried that edge of controlled intensity that made interns scatter like startled birds. "I didn't build this department by accepting mediocrity. Fix it, or I'll find someone who can." Marcus winced. He'd heard stories about Alexandra's exacting standards, the way she could dismantle a presentation with a single raised eyebrow, how she'd once made a senior account manager cry over a misplaced comma in a pitch deck. Genius, everyone said, brilliant, beautiful and intimidating as hell. The phone call ended with an abrupt click and Marcus seized the moment to knock lightly on the doorframe. "Miss Donovan, I have the quarterly reports you requested." "Come in, Marcus." The use of his first name startled him. Marcus wasn't sure Alexandra Donovan even knew his name. He stepped into the office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. September sunlight painted the room in shades of amber and gold, and for a moment, Marcus was struck by how different this space was from his own cubicle in the bullpen. A gray fabric box with barely enough room for his computer and a framed photo of Lily on her first day of school. Alexandra sat behind her desk, her dark auburn hair falling in perfect waves past her shoulders, though a few strands had escaped their careful styling as if she'd been running her hands through it, the only sign of disorder in an otherwise immaculate appearance. Her tailored charcoal suit jacket hung on the back of her chair, leaving her in a silk cream blouse that somehow managed to be both professional and elegant. Striking green eyes lifted to meet Marcus's, and there was something in that gaze that made Marcus's breath catch. A weariness, perhaps, or a loneliness that he recognized because he saw it in his own mirror every morning. "Thank you," Alexandra said, gesturing to the desk with a hand that bore perfectly manicured nails in a subtle nude shade. "Just set them here." Marcus complied, acutely aware of how close he was standing to his boss, catching the faint scent of expensive perfume, something floral and sophisticated with hints of jasmine. He turned to leave, already mentally running through the remaining tasks on his list. "Marcus, wait," he froze mid-step, turning back. "Yes, ma'am." Alexandra had risen from her chair, and suddenly the distance between them felt both too large and too small. The office seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in as Alexandra moved around the desk with deliberate steps. In her heels, she was nearly his height, and her presence was commanding in a way that had nothing to do with physical stature. "I've been meaning to speak with you," Alexandra said, her voice softer now, almost hesitant, a tone Marcus had never heard from the woman who commanded boardrooms with the confidence of a queen. "About your work." Marcus's stomach dropped. Was this it? Was he getting fired? He thought of Lily, of the rent due in 2 weeks, of the mountain of bills that never seemed to shrink no matter how hard he worked. If there's been a problem with my performance, I can do better, Marcus said quickly, hating the desperation he heard in his own voice. I know I've had to leave on time most days because of my daughter, but I can adjust, I can. Stop, Alexandra interrupted, and now she was close enough that Marcus could see the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. The way her perfectly applied makeup couldn't quite hide the exhaustion beneath it, the slight tremor in her hand as she reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Your work is exceptional, that's not why I wanted to talk to you. Confusion flickered across Marcus's face. Then, how do you do it? Alexandra asked abruptly, her green eyes searching his face with an intensity that made him feel exposed. Single-parent, demanding job, and yet you never complain, never miss a deadline. I've watched you, Marcus. You come in earlier than anyone else, you stay focused when everyone else is gossiping by the coffee maker, and you leave at exactly 5:30 every day without fail. There's a story there, and I find myself wanting to know it. The personal nature of the question threw Marcus off balance. In 6 months, no one at Meridian Holdings had asked him anything beyond work-related questions. The walls he'd built between his professional and personal life suddenly felt paper-thin. My daughter, Lily, she's 7, it's just the two of us. Her mother, Marcus hesitated, the old wound still tender despite 3 years of healing. She left when Lily was 4, said motherhood wasn't what she signed up for. So yeah, I do what I have to do. Lily needs stability, needs to know that at least one parent will show up every time no matter what. Something shifted in Alexandra's expression, a crack in the armor of professional distance. Her hand lifted, as if drawn by invisible strings, and her fingers brushed against Marcus's cheek with unexpected gentleness. Her touch was warm, soft, and it sent electricity racing down his spine. Alexandra's voice had gone rough, husky with emotion. That's the most heroic thing I've heard in a long time. Do you have any idea how rare you are, Marcus Chen? In a world of people making excuses, you just quietly show up and do what needs to be done. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He should step back, should maintain the professional boundary, should remember that this was his boss, and crossing that line was a one-way ticket to disaster. But something in Alexandra's eyes held him frozen, a hunger, a loneliness, a desperate need for connection that mirrored the ache Marcus carried in his own chest. Miss Donovan, Alexandra, she corrected, her voice barely above a whisper. Please, when it's just us, call me Alexandra. The intimacy of first names felt dangerous, like standing at the edge of a cliff and feeling the pull of gravity. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, to say something sensible and appropriate, to rebuild the walls that were crumbling between them. He never got the chance. Alexandra closed the remaining distance between them, her hand sliding from Marcus's cheek to cup the back of his neck, and then she was kissing him, a collision of lips and breath, and 3 years of loneliness that Marcus hadn't even fully acknowledged until this moment. The kiss was not tentative or questioning, it was a declaration, a claim, a drowning woman grasping for air. Her lips were soft and tasted faintly of the coffee she'd been drinking, and the scent of her perfume surrounded him like a cloud. For a heartbeat, Marcus froze in shock. This was Alexandra Donovan, his boss, the woman who could end his career with a word, kissing him in an office with a door that wasn't even fully closed. Every rational thought screamed at him to pull away, to apologize, to pretend this never happened. But Marcus was so damn tired of being rational, so tired of being alone. So tired of measuring every decision against a ledger of survival and responsibility. And Alexandra tasted like possibilities and felt like coming home, and the hand at the back of his neck was gentle but insistent. And for just one moment, Marcus wanted to be something other than Lily's dad, other than an employee struggling to make ends meet. He kissed back. His hands found her waist, fingers curling against the silk of her blouse, feeling the warmth of her body beneath the fabric, and he opened his mouth to the insistent press of her tongue. The kiss deepened, turned desperate, 3 years of touch starvation pouring out of Marcus in a way that should have embarrassed him, but instead felt like finally breaking the surface after being underwater too long. Alexandra made a sound low in her throat, satisfaction and relief and desire all tangled together, and pulled Marcus closer, eliminating even the whisper of space between their bodies. Marcus could feel the curves of her pressed against him, the rapid beat of her heart, the way her breath came faster. One of her hands slid from his neck down his back, holding him to her with surprising strength. It was perfect. It was terrible. It was happening in his workplace where anyone could walk by. That thought finally penetrated the fog of want, and Marcus jerked back, breaking the kiss. They stood there, inches apart, both breathing hard, staring at each other with a mixture of shock and something that looked dangerously like hope. Marcus started, but his voice came out wrecked and he had to clear his throat. What just happened? Alexandra's hand was still at his back, fingers pressing against his shirt as if she couldn't quite bring herself to let go. Her lipstick was slightly smudged, her carefully styled hair now definitely mussed, and there was a flush on her cheeks that made her look younger, more vulnerable. I kissed you. I've wanted to kiss you for weeks, and I finally stopped making excuses for why I shouldn't. You're my boss, Marcus said, grasping for the solid ground of professionalism even as his body still sang with the aftershocks of that kiss. We can't. I know all the reasons why we shouldn't, Alexandra interrupted, her green eyes blazing with determination. I've listed them in my head 100 times. The power dynamic, the professional ethics, the risk to your career, to mine. I know, Marcus, but standing here tasting you, feeling you kiss me back, I don't care about the reasons anymore. Marcus pressed his hands against her shoulders, not quite pushing away but creating enough distance to think. You don't care, Alexandra, I have a daughter. I can't afford to lose this job. I can't afford the scandal if this goes wrong. I can't. Then we'll be careful, Alexandra said, with the confidence of someone used to solving problems through sheer force of will. Discreet, no one has to know until we decide we want them to know. And if it doesn't work out, if you decide I'm not worth the complication, the bitterness in Marcus's voice surprised even him. I've already had one person look at the reality of my life and decide they didn't sign up for it. I can't do that again, and I definitely can't do it with someone who signs my paychecks. Alexandra's hands fell away, and Marcus felt the loss of that touch like a physical ache. But instead of backing off, Alexandra's expression hardened into something determined, almost fierce. She took a breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. Look at me, Alexandra commanded, every inch the executive who didn't take no for an answer. Really look at me, Marcus. Marcus met her gaze, saw past the expensive suit and the corner office to the woman beneath, and what he saw there made his breath catch. Loneliness, longing, a desperation that matched his own. I'm 35 years old, Alexandra said quietly, her voice dropping to something raw and honest. I've built an empire, closed deals worth millions, graced magazine covers, but I go home every night to an empty penthouse and wonder what the hell the point of any of it is. I've dated, God have I dated, but it's all surface, all performance. Men who want a trophy, who see the title and the money, but not me, until you. You don't even know me, Marcus protested weakly. Don't I? Alexandra challenged. I know you take your coffee black because spending money on fancy drinks means less for Lily's college fund. I know you have a picture of her on your desk that you touch every morning before you start work, like a talisman. I know you eat lunch at your desk because the 20 minutes you save means you can leave on time. I know you volunteered to take on the Richter account that everyone else was avoiding because the client is difficult, and you needed to prove yourself invaluable, so there's no reason to let you go. I know you, Marcus, maybe not everything, but enough to know that I'm willing to risk everything to know more. The intensity of Alexandra's words hit Marcus like a physical force. No one had seen him, really seen him, in so long that he'd forgotten what it felt like to be visible. And here was this woman, this powerful, brilliant, beautiful woman, telling him that she'd been watching, noticing, caring. This is crazy, Marcus whispered, but even he could hear that he was trying to convince himself, not Alexandra. Probably, Alexandra agreed, a hint of that devastating smile tugging at her perfectly shaped lips. But I've spent my entire life being careful, being calculated, making the smart play, and I'm miserable. For once, I want to do something reckless. I want to take a chance on something that feels real. You feel real, Marcus. Marcus closed his eyes, trying to find his footing in a world that had tilted sideways. Every logical bone in his body screamed that this was a mistake, that he should apologize, walk away, and pretend this never happened. But his heart, that battered, lonely organ that he'd locked away for Lily's sake, was pounding out a different rhythm. When was the last time someone had looked at him like Alexandra was looking at him now? Like he was something precious, something worth pursuing? When was the last time he'd felt this spark of attraction, this pull of possibility? I need to think, Marcus finally said, opening his eyes. This is too much too fast. I can't make a decision like this in a moment. There's too much at stake. Disappointment flickered across Alexandra's face, but she nodded slowly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that seemed almost nervous, so at odds with her usual unshakable confidence. Okay, I understand, think about it. But Marcus, She reached out, caught Marcus's hand in hers, threaded their fingers together in a gesture that felt more intimate than the kiss had been. Her hand was smaller than his, soft but strong, and it fit perfectly against his palm. While you're thinking, remember how this felt. Remember that you're not just a father, not just an employee. You're a man who deserves to be wanted, to be seen, to be kissed in offices by someone who can't stop thinking about you. Marcus's throat tightened with emotion he couldn't name. He nodded, unable to trust his voice, and gently extracted his hand from Alexandra's grip. He needed distance, needed air, needed to get to Lily and remember all the reasons why his life was too complicated for whatever this was. He made it to the door before Alexandra spoke again. Marcus, for what it's worth, I would never hurt you, and I would never do anything to jeopardize your job. Even if you walk out that door and decide this can never happen again, your position here is secure. I need you to know that. Marcus looked back over his shoulder, saw Alexandra standing in that golden afternoon light, looking vulnerable in a way that probably terrified her, and felt something crack open in his chest. I'll think about it, Marcus promised, and fled before he could do something stupid like turn around and kiss her again. The drive to Little Scholars Academy was a blur. Marcus barely remembered navigating traffic, barely registered the familiar route through neighborhoods that gradually shifted from high-rise downtown to the more modest residential area where the after-school program operated. His mind was stuck on repeat, playing the kiss over and over like a highlight reel. The taste of Alexandra's lips, the soft warmth of her body pressed against his, the way her eyes had darkened with want, the vulnerability in her voice when she'd admitted her loneliness. Marcus parked in the lot and pressed his forehead against the steering wheel, trying to breathe, trying to think. This was insane. Getting involved with Alexandra Donovan was a recipe for disaster. The power dynamic alone was enough to make it a terrible idea, never mind the potential for professional catastrophe if things went south. And Marcus had Lily to think about. Every decision he made rippled out to affect her life, her stability, her happiness. But God, when was the last time he'd felt alive like this? When was the last time someone had looked at him and seen Marcus, not just Lily's dad or the guy who processed reports? Daddy! The squeal of delight yanked Marcus out of his spiral. He looked up to see Lily barreling across the parking lot, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders, her dark ponytails flying. Behind her, Mrs. Rodriguez, one of the program supervisors, waved from the doorway. Marcus got out of the car just in time to catch Lily as she launched herself at him. He swept her up, inhaling the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo and whatever craft project had involved glitter today. There were sparkles all over her purple t-shirt. "Hey, Ladybug," Marcus said, the nickname he'd given her when she was a baby slipping out automatically. "How was your day?" "So good. We learned about the solar system in science, and did you know that Jupiter has a storm that's been going on for hundreds of years? Mrs. Patterson said it's called the Great Red Spot, and it's bigger than the whole Earth. Can you imagine, Daddy? A storm bigger than our entire planet." Marcus set her down and helped her buckle into her booster seat in the back, listening to her chatter about gas giants and moons and asteroids. This was his reality, science facts and after-school snacks, and making sure they had clean clothes for tomorrow. This was what mattered. But as he drove them home to their small two-bedroom apartment in a building that had seen better days, part of his mind was still in that corner office, still feeling the press of Alexandra's lips against his. Dinner was chicken stir-fry made with vegetables that were a day away from going bad and rice that Marcus bought in bulk because it was cheap and filling. Lily sat at their small kitchen table, swinging her legs and continuing her monologue about space, while Marcus cooked and tried to focus on her words instead of the turmoil in his head. "And Saturn has like 1,000,000 moons. Well, not 1,000,000, but a lot. Mrs. Patterson said they keep finding new ones. Daddy, do you think we'll ever go to space?" Marcus plated their food and brought it to the table, settling into the chair across from his daughter. She was beautiful in that unself-conscious way of children, all energy and curiosity and endless questions. She had his dark hair and his late mother's expressive eyes, and looking at her made his chest ache with love so fierce it was almost painful. "Maybe when you're older," Marcus said. "They're working on space tourism. By the time you're grown up, maybe regular people will be able to visit the moon." "That would be so cool." Lily took a bite of her dinner, then fixed him with a serious look. "Daddy, are you okay? You look weird." "Weird how?" Marcus asked, buying time. "I dunno, like you're thinking really hard about something. Did something bad happen at work? How did she do that? How did a 7-year-old read him so easily when he thought he was hiding his inner chaos so well?" "Nothing bad," Marcus assured her. "Just something unexpected." But it's grown-up stuff, nothing for you to worry about. Lily considered this, then nodded and returned her attention to her dinner. Crisis averted, at least for now. Later, after homework was finished and Lily was bathed and tucked into bed with her favorite stuffed elephant, Marcus finally had time to confront the thoughts that had been circling in his head for hours. He sat on the worn couch in their living room, the TV playing something mindless in the background, and let himself really think about what had happened. Alexandra Donovan had kissed him, his boss, the senior vice president of Meridian Holdings, a woman who probably had her pick of partners, who moved in circles that Marcus couldn't even imagine, had kissed him and said she wanted more. It was flattering, thrilling, terrifying. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolled through social media without really seeing it, then paused on a photo that had been making the rounds in the office gossip chain a few weeks ago. Alexandra at some charity gala black evening gown that probably cost more than Marcus's car, arm linked with some businessman in a tuxedo, both of them smiling for the cameras. The comments were all variations of a theme: power couple, relationship goals, perfect match. That was Alexandra's world. Galas and fundraisers and beautiful people in expensive clothes. What the hell was Marcus thinking, imagining he could fit into that? But then he remembered the look in Alexandra's eyes when she talked about going home to an empty penthouse. The loneliness that had echoed in her voice. The way her hand had trembled slightly when she'd reached for him. Maybe Alexandra's world wasn't as perfect as it looked from the outside. Maybe everyone was just trying to figure it out, trying to find connection in a world that seemed designed to keep people apart. Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming text, and his heart jumped before he even looked at the screen. Unknown number, it's Alexandra. I got your number from HR, I'm sorry if that's an overstep. I just wanted to say that I meant what I said earlier. Take whatever time you need, no pressure, but I'm here and I'm interested and I'm not going anywhere. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. He should probably not respond, should maintain distance, should let this situation diffuse naturally. Instead, he typed, "How did you know it was the right time to take a risk on something?" The response came quickly, "I didn't. I still don't, but I'm tired of always playing it safe and wondering what if. Some things are worth the risk. Marcus, even if those things come with complications, single-parent, tight-budget life that's nothing like yours, Alexandra. Especially then, I don't want easy, Marcus, I want real. I think you might be the most real person I've ever met." Marcus felt something warm unfurl in his chest, dangerous and hopeful and terrifying all at once. Marcus. I need time to think about this, to figure out what the smart play is. Alexandra, take all the time you need, but Marcus, sometimes the smart play and the right play aren't the same thing. Marcus set his phone down and leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. His life had been carefully constructed over the past 3 years, every decision made with Lily's well-being in mind, every risk assessed and usually rejected, every moment of spontaneity sacrificed on the altar of stability. But God, he was tired. Tired of being alone, tired of putting everyone else's needs first, tired of living a life that felt like it was on pause. Maybe Alexandra was right, maybe some things were worth the risk. The next day at work was an exercise in torture. Marcus kept his head down, focused on his tasks, and absolutely did not look toward the corner office where Alexandra was likely conducting meetings and making million-dollar decisions. He ate lunch at his desk as usual, fielded questions from colleagues as usual, and left at exactly 5:30 p.m. as usual. But nothing felt usual. He was hyper-aware of every sound in the office, every footstep that might be Alexandra's, every email notification that might be from her. By the time he left for the day, his nerves were frayed and his concentration was shot. The evening routine with Lily, dinner, homework, bath time, bedtime, was both comforting and frustrating. Comforting because it was familiar, the bedrock of his world. Frustrating because part of him wanted to fast forward through it so he could think about Alexandra, about the kiss, about what the hell he was going to do. Lily was particularly chatty that evening, full of stories about a playground dispute that had been resolved through the careful negotiation of snack sharing. Marcus listened and made appropriate sounds of support, but his mind was elsewhere. "Daddy, you're doing it again," Lily announced as Marcus tucked her in. "Doing what, ladybug? Thinking really hard? What's got you all distracted?" Marcus sat on the edge of her bed, stroking her hair back from her forehead. How did he explain adult complications to a 7-year-old who thought the biggest problems in life were about playground justice? "Remember how sometimes you have to make a choice between two things, and both of them seem good but also a little scary?" Marcus asked. Lily nodded seriously. Like when I had to decide whether to join the soccer team or the art club, I wanted to do both, but you said I could only pick one because of time and money. The reminder of their financial constraints stung, but Marcus nodded. Yeah, like that. Well, Daddy has one of those choices to make. What's the choice? It's complicated, Marcus hedged, but basically someone offered me something that could be really good. But it's also risky, and if it goes wrong, it could affect both of us. Lily was quiet for a moment, her serious thinking face on, the one that made her look older than her years. What did you tell me when I was scared to join anything because I didn't want to mess up? Marcus smiled despite himself. I told you that sometimes you have to try new things even if they're scary because that's how you grow. Uh-huh, Lily nodded sagely. So maybe you should take your own advice, Daddy. Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus leaned down and kissed her forehead. When did you get so smart? I was born this way, Lily said with 7-year-old confidence. It's one of my superpowers. Marcus laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had since yesterday's kiss. Get some sleep, superhero. School tomorrow. Daddy, Lily's voice stopped him at the door. Whatever you choose, it'll be okay. You always make stuff okay. The faith in her voice nearly undid him. Marcus managed a smile and a nod before retreating to his bedroom where he sat on the bed and finally pulled out his phone. Marcus. Are you free tomorrow after work? I think we need to talk, really talk. Alexandra's response was almost instant. I'll clear my calendar, your place or somewhere neutral. Marcus thought about his tiny apartment with its worn furniture and Lily's drawings all over the refrigerator. Thought about Alexandra's world of penthouses and privilege. But if they were going to do this, if he was even going to consider this, Alexandra needed to see his reality, not some sanitized version of it. Marcus, my place, but fair warning, it's not the Ritz. And my daughter will be there, so anything we discuss happens after her bedtime. Alexandra, I don't want the Ritz, Marcus. I want you. Send me your address. Marcus spent the next day in a state of controlled panic. He cleaned the apartment after Lily went to school. Shoving clutter into closets and scrubbing the bathroom like Alexandra was going to conduct a white glove inspection. He felt ridiculous. This wasn't a date, it was a conversation about whether a date was even possible, but he couldn't help himself. Work was another exercise in avoidance. Marcus saw Alexandra exactly once passing in the hallway, and the look they exchanged lasted maybe 2 seconds but felt electric. Alexandra's eyes held a question, are we doing this? And Marcus's held an answer. We're going to try. At 5:30 p.m., Marcus left the office with his heart in his throat. At 6:15 p.m., he picked up Lily from after-school care. At 7 p.m., after dinner and homework, he told Lily that a friend from work was going to stop by to talk about something, and could she be extra good and maybe play quietly in her room for a bit. Lily, bless her heart, gave him a knowing look that was way too old for her face. Is this friend the thing you were worried about? Sort of, Marcus admitted. Is she nice? The she didn't even faze him. Marcus had always been open with Lily about the fact that people loved who they loved, and sometimes that was someone of the same gender, and sometimes it was someone of a different gender, and all of it was okay. But hearing his 7-year-old correctly intuit that his workplace complication was a woman still caught him off guard. I think so, Marcus said, but that's part of what I need to figure out. Lily nodded. Okay. I'll be in my room with Mr. Trunks. Mr. Trunks being the stuffed elephant who had been her constant companion since she was 3. At 7:45 p.m., there was a knock at the door, and Marcus's heart tried to escape through his throat. Alexandra Donovan stood in the dingy hallway of Marcus's apartment building looking completely out of place and somehow more beautiful for it. She ditched the power suit for dark jeans and a soft cashmere sweater in deep emerald that brought out her eyes, her auburn hair falling loose around her shoulders. She carried a designer handbag that probably cost more than Marcus's rent, but her expression was uncertain, almost nervous. Hi, Alexandra said, and there was vulnerability in her voice that Marcus found oddly endearing. Hi, Marcus echoed, stepping back to let her in. Welcome to Casa Chen. It's not much, but it's home. Alexandra walked into the apartment and looked around. Not with judgment, Marcus was relieved to see, but with genuine interest. Her gaze took in the second-hand furniture that Marcus had carefully chosen for comfort over style. The crayon drawings held to the refrigerator with magnets from local pizza places. The bookshelf overflowing with Lily's chapter books and Marcus's well-worn paperbacks. The photos on the wall documenting Lily's progression from infant to gap-toothed 7-year-old. It's perfect, Alexandra said quietly, her fingers trailing over the back of the couch. It's lived in, loved. My place looks like a showroom from an interior design magazine. This looks like a home. Some of the tension in Marcus's shoulders eased. Can I get you something to drink? I have water, milk, or apple juice. Not exactly a well-stocked bar. Water's great. Alexandra followed him into the small kitchen, and the space immediately felt too small with both of them in it, though Marcus wasn't entirely sure if that was because of physical dimensions or because of the electricity crackling between them. He pulled 2 glasses from the cabinet and filled them from the filtered pitcher in the fridge, hyper-aware of Alexandra's proximity. The faint scent of her perfume, different from yesterday, something lighter and more citrusy but equally intoxicating. So, Alexandra said as they moved to the living room, settling on opposite ends of the couch, a respectable distance that nonetheless felt charged with possibility. You wanted to talk. Marcus nodded, gripping his water glass like a lifeline. I've been thinking about what happened, what you said, and I need to be really clear about what my life is like before either of us makes a decision we can't take back. Okay, Alexandra said, her full attention focused on Marcus in a way that was both flattering and intense, her green eyes never wavering from his face. I'm listening. Marcus took a breath and dove in. I'm a single parent, that's not some minor detail, it's my entire life. Everything I do, every decision I make, it all comes back to what's best for Lily. I don't have the luxury of spontaneity. I can't do last-minute dinners or weekend getaways. I can't even stay late at work without advance planning because I need to arrange childcare. Okay, Alexandra said again, not interrupting, her expression serious and attentive. I'm broke, Marcus continued, the words bitter but necessary. Like, counting pennies broke. That sweater you're wearing probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I shop at discount stores, I clip coupons, I fix things with duct tape instead of replacing them. If you're looking for someone to jet off to Paris with or whatever wealthy people do for fun, that's not me. That will never be me. I don't want to jet off to Paris, Alexandra said quietly, her fingers tightening around her water glass. I've been to Paris, it's lovely. It's also lonely when you're there with someone who's only interested in the photo opportunity, not the actual experience. Marcus pressed on, needing to get it all out. And I have baggage. Lily's mom leaving, that did a number on me. I don't trust easily. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to decide that my life is too complicated and they're out. So if you're doing this because I'm some kind of project, some way to feel better about yourself by slumming it with the working-class single dad, I need you to walk away now before anyone gets hurt. The words hung in the air between them, harsh and honest. Marcus waited for Alexandra to make excuses, to backtrack, to realize that this was all too much trouble. Instead, Alexandra set down her water glass and shifted closer on the couch. Not touching but near enough that Marcus could feel the warmth radiating from her, could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. Are you done? Alexandra asked, not unkindly, a slight smile playing at the corners of her lips. Marcus nodded, his heart pounding. Good, my turn. Alexandra's eyes were serious, intense in a way that made Marcus's breath catch. She tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear in that gesture he was starting to recognize as nervous. I'm not doing this on a whim, and you're sure as hell not a project. I told you yesterday that I've been watching you, but I didn't tell you why. You want to know what I saw, Marcus? I saw someone who shows up. Every day, without fail, without complaint, you show up and do the work. Not for recognition, not for a pat on the back, but because it needs to be done. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How incredible? It's not incredible, Marcus protested. It's just being a parent. It's being an exceptional parent, Alexandra corrected, her voice firm, and an exceptional person. I've dated plenty of people, Marcus. Handsome men, successful men, men who looked perfect on paper and in photographs. And every single one of them was performing just like I was. We were playing roles, the power couple, the society darlings, whatever the press wanted us to be. It was exhausting and empty and soul-crushing. Alexandra reached out slowly, giving Marcus plenty of time to pull away, and took his hand. Her hand was soft and warm, her grip gentle but sure. When I look at you, I don't see a project. I don't see someone to fix or save. I see someone who has his life together in ways I can't even imagine. You're balancing work and single parenthood, you're keeping a roof over your daughter's head, you're showing her every day what strength and dedication look like. That's not something to apologize for, Marcus, that's something to be proud of. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. You say that now. But when the reality sets in, when you're stuck watching kids' movies instead of going to your fancy events, when we can't do the things you're used to because I can't afford them. Then we'll watch kids' movies, Alexandra interrupted, her thumb stroking across his knuckles in a gesture that sent shivers up his arm. Do you think I enjoy those fancy events? Standing around making small talk with people I don't care about, smiling for cameras, pretending my life is perfect. I don't care about any of that, Marcus. I care about being with someone who makes me feel something real, and you," her hand tightened around his, "you make me feel things I didn't think I was capable of feeling anymore." "This is crazy," Marcus whispered, but he didn't pull his hand away, couldn't bring himself to break that connection. "Probably," Alexandra agreed, a soft smile curving her lips, the kind of genuine, unguarded smile that transformed her face from beautiful to breathtaking. "But I've spent my entire adult life being sensible, building my career, making strategic choices, dating appropriate people, and I'm miserable. I want to try something different, I want to try being happy, and I hope that might be possible with you." Before Marcus could respond, there was a small sound from the hallway. Both of them looked up to see Lily standing there in her pajamas, pink with little stars all over them, clutching Mr. Trunks and looking at them with open curiosity. "Sorry, Daddy," she said, her dark eyes wide. "I got thirsty." Marcus quickly released Alexandra's hand, feeling his face heat. "It's okay, Ladybug, come get some water." But Lily's attention was fixed on Alexandra, who had stood up with the automatic poise of someone used to being observed, her posture straightening even in this casual setting. "Hi," Lily said, walking into the kitchen but keeping her eyes on their guest. "You're really pretty." Alexandra's smile widened, and Marcus was struck by how genuine it looked, no trace of the polite social mask he'd seen her wear at the office. "Thank you, you must be Lily. Your dad talks about you all the time." "He does." Lily looked pleased as she filled her plastic cup with water from the pitcher. But instead of heading back to her room, she plopped down in the armchair, clearly settling in for conversation. "What does he say?" "Lily," Marcus started, mortified, but Alexandra waved him off. "He tells me you're learning about the solar system," Alexandra said, moving back to the couch and sitting down with every appearance of being comfortable with this interrogation. "What's your favorite planet?" "Saturn," Lily said immediately, her face lighting up with enthusiasm. "Because of the rings. They're made of ice and rocks and stuff, and there are different rings with different colors, and some of them are really thin and some are really thick," and she paused, her eyes narrowing as she studied Alexandra with the sharp perception of children. "Are you dating my dad?" Marcus choked on nothing. "Lily." "What?" Lily looked genuinely confused, swinging her legs in the chair. "You said you had to decide about something risky, and then this pretty lady shows up and you were holding hands." "I'm 7, not stupid." Alexandra laughed, a genuine, delighted sound that made something warm bloom in Marcus's chest. "You're absolutely right, you're not stupid at all, you're very observant. To answer your question, I would like to date your dad if he'll let me, but we're still figuring things out." Lily considered this with her serious thinking face, the one that made her look like a tiny adult deliberating world affairs. "Okay. But I have questions." "Lily, you don't need to," Marcus started, wondering if it was possible to die from embarrassment. "I want to," Alexandra said, her attention still on Lily, treating her like an adult who deserved respect rather than dismissing her as just a child. "Ask away. Are you nice to my daddy? Because if you're not, I'll be mad at you." "I try to be very nice to him," Alexandra said seriously, her expression solemn. "And if I mess up, I promise to apologize and do better." "Do you like kids? Because I'm a kid and I'm part of the package deal." "I like kids," Alexandra said, and Marcus could hear the honesty in her voice. "I don't have any of my own, but I have nieces and nephews who I'm very fond of, though I have to admit none of them are as smart as you seem to be." Lily preened a little at the compliment, sitting up straighter. "Last question. If you make my daddy sad, what happens?" This time Alexandra's expression turned completely serious, and she leaned forward slightly, meeting Lily's eyes with the same intensity she probably used in boardroom negotiations. "Then I will have failed at something really important, and I'll deserve whatever consequences come with that. Your dad is special, Lily, and you're special too. I promise to treat you both that way." Lily studied her for a long moment, her dark eyes searching Alexandra's face for any hint of insincerity. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because she nodded decisively. "Okay, you can date him, but I'm watching you." "That's fair," Alexandra said solemnly. Lily finished her water, hopped off the chair, and headed back toward her room. At the hallway, she paused and looked back. "Oh, and if you ever want to talk about space stuff, I know a lot, just so you know." Then she was gone, leaving Marcus and Alexandra alone in the living room once again. "I am so sorry," Marcus said, his face burning with embarrassment. "She's normally not that protective, that smart, that absolutely wonderful." Alexandra shook her head, her eyes bright with something that looked dangerously like affection. "Don't apologize, Marcus. She's amazing. You've raised an incredible kid." Marcus felt something in his chest crack open, some defensive wall he'd been maintaining crumbling under the weight of Alexandra's sincerity. She's the best thing I've ever done, the only thing that truly matters. I can see that, Alexandra said softly, reaching for his hand again. This time Marcus didn't hesitate, letting their fingers intertwine naturally. And I want you to know I meant what I said to her. This isn't casual for me, Marcus. I don't do casual well. If we're going to try this, I'm all in. That means respecting your boundaries, understanding your priorities, and accepting that Lily comes first. Always, that's a lot to take on, Marcus warned, his voice rough with emotion. Most people say they understand, but then they get frustrated when plans have to change or when I can't be spontaneous or when a sick kid takes priority over a date. I'm not most people, Alexandra said firmly, her green eyes blazing with determination. And I don't want to take on your responsibilities or try to replace anyone. I just want to be part of your life. However that looks, whatever pace works for you. Marcus looked at their joined hands, at the physical representation of the connection forming between them. Every logical part of his brain was still screaming warnings, about power dynamics, about getting hurt, about risking the stability he'd worked so hard to build. But there was another voice, quieter but growing stronger, that said, "What if this is good? What if this is right? What if you deserve something for yourself?" "Okay," Marcus heard himself say, the word coming out barely above a whisper. "Let's try this, but we go slow, we're careful. And at the first sign that it's affecting my job or Lily's well-being, we stop." "Deal," Alexandra said immediately, her face breaking into a smile so radiant it took Marcus's breath away. Then her expression turned slightly mischievous, a playful glint entering her eyes. "So does this mean I get to take you on a date? An actual, planned-in-advance, get-a-babysitter date?" Marcus laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years, like a weight he'd been carrying had suddenly lifted. Yeah, I think it does." Alexandra's smile widened, and she lifted Marcus's hand to her lips, pressing a kiss to his knuckles that felt both old-fashioned and intimate, her lips soft and warm against his skin. "Then I should probably go and let you get some rest. We both have work tomorrow, and I have a date to plan." They stood, still holding hands, and walked to the door. The goodbye felt weighted with possibility, with the acknowledgement that they were standing at the beginning of something that could change everything. "Marcus!" Alexandra paused in the doorway, turning to face him fully. "Thank you for giving me a chance, for letting me see your real life, not some sanitized version. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you don't regret it." "I'm pretty good at detecting bullshit," Marcus warned, though he was smiling. "So don't make promises you can't keep." "I never do," Alexandra said, and then, because apparently they were doing this, she leaned in and kissed him. Soft and sweet and full of promise, her lips gentle against his, tasting faintly of the water she'd been drinking. The kiss was different from yesterday's desperate collision. This one was tender, exploratory, a beginning rather than an explosion. When she pulled back, Marcus was smiling. "Good night, Alexandra." "Good night, Marcus." The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in balancing work and budding romance. At the office, Marcus and Alexandra maintained strict professionalism, no lingering looks, no unnecessary contact, nothing that would tip off their colleagues that anything had changed. But there were small moments. Alexandra bringing Marcus coffee without being asked, the blend exactly how he liked it. Marcus staying a few minutes late to discuss a project and feeling the charge in the air when they were alone in her office. Text messages throughout the day that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with getting to know each other. He learned that Alexandra was a night owl who did her best thinking at 2 a.m. That she had a weakness for terrible reality TV shows that she watched guiltily in her pristine penthouse. That she'd wanted to be a writer when she was young, but had been pressured into business school by her ambitious family. That beneath the polished exterior was a woman who felt like she'd spent her whole life meeting other people's expectations. She learned that Marcus loved old movies, the kind with witty dialogue and happy endings. That he'd been an English major before reality forced him into the more practical world of business. That he still read poetry sometimes when Lily was asleep, finding comfort in Neruda and Mary Oliver. That he dreamed of taking Lily to see the ocean someday, even though they couldn't afford the trip. Their first official date happened on a Friday night when Marcus's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, a kind widow in her 60s, agreed to watch Lily. Alexandra picked Marcus up in her sleek BMW, and Marcus tried not to feel self-conscious about his carefully pressed khakis and the button-down shirt that was the nicest thing he owned, the collar slightly frayed but clean. "Where are we going?" Marcus asked as they drove through the city, the Chicago skyline glowing against the darkening sky. "Somewhere I think you'll like," Alexandra said mysteriously, her lips curved in a secretive smile. Marcus expected something expensive, something designed to impress. One of those restaurants where the menu didn't have prices and the sommelier was more intimidating than the food. What he got instead was a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood he'd never visited. Not fancy, just authentic. The kind of place with red-checkered tablecloths and waiters who'd worked there for 30 years and called regular customers by name. The smell of garlic and fresh bread filled the air, and Dean Martin played softly in the background. "I wanted our first date to be about actually talking," Alexandra explained as they settled into their booth, the red vinyl seats worn smooth from decades of use. "Not performing for other people or worrying about who might see us, just us." It was perfect. They talked about everything: Alexandra's childhood in Connecticut, growing up in a family where success was measured in zeros on a paycheck and anything less than perfection was failure. The pressure of being the oldest daughter, expected to excel at everything while making it look effortless. Her journey to the top of the marketing world and the loneliness that came with success, how each rung on the ladder felt emptier than the last. Marcus shared stories about Lily, about the fear and determination of suddenly becoming a single parent at 29, about those first terrifying months when he didn't know if he could do it alone, about his dreams for her future even if he couldn't afford to make all of them come true right now. "What did you want to be when you were a kid?" Alexandra asked over dessert. Tiramisu they were sharing because Marcus had been too full for his own, but Alexandra had insisted he at least try it, feeding him bites from her fork. "This is going to sound ridiculous," Marcus said, savoring the coffee-soaked cake and creamy mascarpone, "but I wanted to be a marine biologist. I was obsessed with the ocean, with all the life under the surface that most people never see. I read every book about it I could find, watched every documentary." "That's not ridiculous at all," Alexandra said, her eyes soft with understanding. "What happened?" Marcus shrugged, the old disappointment still there but dulled by time. "Reality, college is expensive, marine biology programs are competitive, and then life threw some curveballs. But sometimes I look at Lily learning about space and getting excited about the universe, and I think, at least she still has that wonder. That curiosity, I want to protect that as long as I can." Alexandra reached across the table and took his hand, right there in the restaurant where anyone could see, her thumb stroking across his knuckles. "You're a good father, Marcus. An amazing father, she's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her," Marcus corrected, his voice thick with emotion. "She's the reason I keep going on the hard days, the reason I didn't fall apart when Sarah left." They talked until the restaurant started closing down around them, until the waiters were giving them polite but pointed looks about the time and stacking chairs on nearby tables. Alexandra drove Marcus home, walked him to his door like they were teenagers on a first date, and kissed him goodnight with a sweetness that made Marcus's knees weak. Her lips were soft, tasting of tiramisu and coffee, and her hand cupped his cheek with a tenderness that made his heart ache. "When can I see you again?" Alexandra asked, her forehead resting against his, her breath warm against his lips. "Monday at work," Marcus said with a smile, though his arms were wrapped around her waist and he showed no signs of letting go. "You know what I mean." Alexandra's voice was playful, affectionate. "I know." Marcus pulled back enough to look at her to see the happiness in her green eyes. "This was really nice, Alexandra, thank you." "It was perfect," Alexandra agreed, her hand still cradling his face. "Because I was with you." Their relationship developed in stolen moments and carefully planned dates. Alexandra was respectful of Marcus's boundaries, never pushing for more than Marcus was ready to give, never making him feel guilty for prioritizing Lily. But it was clear that what was developing between them was serious. Not a fling, not a phase, but something real and deep and potentially life-changing. At work, they remained professional, but Marcus couldn't help noticing how Alexandra seemed different. Lighter somehow. She smiled more, was more patient with her team, seemed less like the intimidating VP and more like a human being who was genuinely happy. Her employees noticed too. There was gossip in the break room about how Miss Donovan seemed to be in a perpetually good mood lately, speculation about what had changed. 3 weeks into their relationship, Alexandra met Lily officially, not just a surprise visit but a planned outing. They went to the Museum of Science and Industry on a Saturday, and Marcus watched with something like awe as Alexandra patiently answered Lily's endless questions, crouched down to Lily's level to examine exhibits together, genuinely seemed to enjoy spending her day off surrounded by screaming kids and interactive displays. She bought Lily a stuffed planet Saturn in the gift shop without being asked, and Lily's delighted squeal made both adults laugh. She's nice, Lily pronounced that evening after Alexandra had dropped them off, flopping onto the couch with her new stuffed planet. I like her. She listened to me about the dinosaurs even though she probably already knew all that stuff. Yeah, Marcus agreed, his heart full to bursting. She is nice. Does this mean she's your girlfriend now? Lily asked with the blunt directness of children, looking up at him with curious eyes. Marcus considered the question. Were they official? They hadn't explicitly labeled it, but the term felt right. Yeah, I think she is. Cool, Lily said, then went right back to playing with her new toy as if this wasn't a monumental shift in their lives, as if she hadn't just given her blessing to the first person Marcus had dated since her mother left. If only adults could adapt so easily. The first real test of their relationship came a month in, when Marcus got a call at work that Lily had fallen on the playground and needed to be picked up. Nothing serious, a sprained ankle and some scraped palms, but she was crying and scared and needed her dad. Marcus was in the middle of a meeting when he got the call, his phone vibrating insistently in his pocket. He excused himself, his face going pale as he listened to the school nurse explain the situation, grabbed his jacket, and was halfway to the elevator when Alexandra caught up with him, her heels clicking rapidly on the tile floor. What's wrong? Alexandra asked, taking in Marcus's pale face and frantic energy, immediately reading the panic in his expression. Lily, she got hurt at school, I need to go. His hands were shaking as he pressed the elevator button repeatedly as if that would make it come faster. Let me drive you, Alexandra said immediately, her hand on his arm. You're too upset to be behind the wheel safely. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some semblance of independence, but the truth was his hands were shaking and his mind was racing with worst-case scenarios despite the nurse's reassurances. He nodded. They made it to the school in record time, Alexandra's driving smooth and confident even as she broke a few speed limits. Lily was in the nurse's office, her ankle wrapped in an elastic bandage and her face tear-streaked, holding an ice pack to her scraped palms. When she saw Marcus, she burst into fresh tears. Daddy, Marcus gathered her up carefully, mindful of the injured ankle, and held her while she cried into his shoulder, her small body shaking with the aftermath of pain and fear. Alexandra hung back, giving them space. But when the nurse explained what had happened and what care would be needed, she was the one who remembered to ask about ice packs and elevation, and whether they should follow up with a doctor, her voice calm and organized while Marcus was still trying to process his daughter's tears. In the car on the way back to Marcus's apartment, Lily fell asleep in her booster seat, exhausted from the drama and the pain medication the nurse had given her. Alexandra carried her up the stairs while Marcus fumbled with his keys, and together they got her settled on the couch with her ankle elevated and fresh ice wrapped in a dish towel. I should get back to the office, Marcus said, though the thought of leaving Lily made his chest tight with anxiety. No, Alexandra said firmly, her hand on his shoulder. You should stay with your daughter. I'll handle things at work. But the Morrison account, I'll handle it, Marcus, that's what partners do. Alexandra cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Be a dad, let me be your partner. Let me help carry some of the weight. The word partner hit Marcus right in the heart, made his eyes sting with emotion he couldn't quite name. He nodded, not trusting his voice, and watched Alexandra leave to go back to the office and cover for him. That evening, after Lily was properly medicated and settled in bed, watching a movie on Marcus's laptop with her injured foot propped on pillows, Marcus got a text from Alexandra. Everything's handled at work. Told everyone you had a family emergency. How's our girl? The hour made Marcus's eyes sting all over again. He texted back, she's okay. Milking the injury for extra screen time and ice cream, but okay, thank you for today. I don't know what I would have done without you. Alexandra, you would have figured it out because that's what you do, but I'm glad I could help. I meant what I said, Marcus. I'm your partner in everything. Marcus stared at the message for a long time, feeling walls inside himself finally crumble completely. He'd been so determined to do everything alone, to never need anyone, to protect himself and Lily from the pain of abandonment. But Alexandra wasn't trying to take over or fix things or prove anything. She was just there, present, willing to share the burden. Maybe letting someone in didn't mean weakness. Maybe it meant strength, the strength to be vulnerable, to trust, to build something together. The second test came from an unexpected direction, Marcus's ex-wife, Sarah. She showed up on a Tuesday evening without warning, knocking on the apartment door just as Marcus was helping Lily with her math homework. He opened the door and froze because he hadn't seen Sarah in nearly 2 years. Not since the custody agreement had been finalized, and she'd moved to California to find herself and pursue some vague artistic dreams. Marcus, Sarah said, looking nervous and hopeful and like a stranger. Her blonde hair was shorter now, styled in a trendy asymmetrical cut, and she wore expensive-looking bohemian clothes that screamed I found myself in a yoga retreat. Can we talk? Everything in Marcus wanted to slam the door in her face. This was the woman who had abandoned Lily when she was 4 years old, who had decided that motherhood was too hard and walked away, who had left them both to pick up the pieces. But Lily had heard her mother's voice, and she was already scrambling off her chair, face lit up with a desperate hope that broke Marcus's heart. "Mom!" Sarah pushed past Marcus, not aggressively, just with the confidence of someone who used to live here, and knelt down to Lily's level, her arms outstretched. "Hey baby, look at you, you're so big now, I can't believe how much you've grown." Marcus wanted to physically remove Sarah from his apartment, from Lily's life, but he couldn't do that to his daughter. So he stood there, jaw clenched, while Sarah made small talk with Lily about school and friends and interests, acting like she hadn't missed 3 years of her daughter's life, like absence could be erased with a smile and some superficial questions. After 20 excruciating minutes, Marcus sent Lily to her room, just for a bit ladybug grown-up talk, and turned to face Sarah with barely contained fury. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I wanted to see my daughter," Sarah said, standing and wrapping her arms around herself defensively. "I know I messed up, Marcus. I know I wasn't ready for motherhood when Lily was born. But I've been working on myself, going to therapy, and I think I'm ready now. I want to be part of Lily's life." "You think you're ready now?" Marcus's voice was low and dangerous, the anger he'd been suppressing for 3 years finally bubbling to the surface. "You don't get to walk away for 3 years and then decide you're ready. Lily has spent 3 years wondering why her mother didn't love her enough to stay. Do you have any idea what that did to her? What it did to both of us?" "I know," Sarah said, tears in her blue eyes. "And I'm sorry, Marcus, I truly am, but people change, I've changed, I want to make this right." "How?" "By disrupting the life we've built. By confusing her even more." His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, every muscle in his body tense with the effort of not yelling. Before Sarah could answer, there was another knock at the door. Marcus opened it to find Alexandra standing there, holding take-out bags from the Thai place they'd mentioned wanting to try, and looking concerned as she took in the scene. Marcus's furious expression, the unfamiliar blonde woman in the apartment, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. "Sorry, I know we didn't have plans tonight, but I thought I'd surprise you with dinner and—" Alexandra's words died as she registered the situation more fully, her gaze moving between Marcus and the stranger. "Who's this?" Sarah asked, looking between them with dawning understanding and something that might have been jealousy. "None of your business," Marcus said shortly. Then to Alexandra, his voice softening despite his anger, "This is Sarah, Lily's mom. She decided to show up unannounced after 3 years." Understanding and something protective flashed across Alexandra's face. She set the takeout bags on the kitchen counter with deliberate calm and positioned herself next to Marcus, not aggressively, just present, a united front. "I should go," Sarah said, clearly uncomfortable with the addition of another person, with having a witness to this confrontation. "But Marcus, I'm serious. I want to see Lily. We should set up a schedule." "We should set up nothing," Marcus interrupted, his voice hard. "You want back in her life, you go through a lawyer. You do this the right way, with counseling and supervised visits and all the legal protections that should have been there from the beginning. You don't get to just walk back in and play mom when it's convenient for you." Sarah looked like she wanted to argue, opened her mouth to protest, but something in Marcus's expression, or maybe it was the solid presence of Alexandra beside him, made her close it again. Okay, that's fair. I'll have my lawyer contact you." She left, and Marcus stood frozen in the middle of his living room, shaking with adrenaline and rage and fear about what this meant for Lily, for their carefully constructed life. "Marcus," Alexandra said softly, her hand touching his arm gently. "Breathe." Marcus took a shaky breath, then another, his chest tight. "I can't believe she just showed up. After 3 years of nothing, she just shows up." "I know," Alexandra soothed, turning him to face her and pulling him into her arms. "But you handled it perfectly. You set boundaries, you protected Lily. You did exactly what you needed to do." "She's going to try to come back into Lily's life," Marcus said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow as he wrapped his arms around Alexandra and held on tight. "She's going to disrupt everything, and Lily's going to get hurt, and I don't know how to protect her from that." Alexandra's arms tightened around him, one hand stroking through his hair in a comforting rhythm. "You're not alone in this. Whatever happens next, we'll figure it out together. I'm not going anywhere, Marcus, I promise." The promise steadied something in Marcus, anchored him when he felt like he was drowning. He pulled back, looked at the woman who had somehow become essential to his life in just a few months, and felt a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly knocked him over. "I don't deserve you," Marcus whispered, his voice rough. "You absolutely do," Alexandra countered firmly, her hands cupping his face. "But we can argue about that later. Right now, I think you should check on Lily, and I'll heat up this Thai food I brought and we'll figure out the next steps." That night, after Lily was asleep, and they'd talked through the potential legal complications of Sarah's return, Marcus and Alexandra sat on the couch with the lights low and the weight of the day pressing down on them. "Are you okay?" Alexandra asked, her arm around Marcus's shoulders, his head resting on her chest, listening to the steady beat of her heart. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "Part of me is terrified that Sarah will somehow get custody, or that Lily will choose her because she's new and exciting, and hasn't been the one enforcing bedtimes and homework. Part of me is angry that she gets to just waltz back in and act like the past 3 years didn't happen. And part of me," he paused, shame coloring his voice, "part of me is relieved that maybe I won't have to do this alone anymore, and I feel guilty for even thinking that." "That last part isn't something to be ashamed of," Alexandra said, her fingers stroking through his hair with gentle, soothing motions. "You've been carrying everything by yourself for so long. It's okay to want help. It's okay to need someone." "I never thought I'd need someone again," Marcus confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "After Sarah left, I built these walls. I told myself that Lily and I were fine on our own, that we didn't need anyone else, that letting someone in was just asking to get hurt again." "And now," Alexandra prompted gently, her hand never stopping its comforting movement through his hair. "Now," Marcus tilted his head up to look at Alexandra, to meet those green eyes that had become so familiar, so dear to him. "Now I'm terrified because I do need you. I need the way you make me feel seen. I need how you don't try to fix everything but you're there to help carry it. I need this, and that means you have the power to destroy me if you leave." Alexandra's expression was fierce, intense, her green eyes blazing. She shifted so she could look at him fully, both hands cupping his face, thumbs stroking along his cheekbones. "Then it's good that I'm not leaving. Marcus, I know you've been hurt, I know you're scared, but I'm here for the long haul. Not just the easy parts, the hard parts too, the unexpected ex-wives, the scared kids, the tight budgets and tough decisions, all of it." "Why?" Marcus whispered, his hands coming up to cover hers. "You could have anyone, why me?" "Why us? Because you're real," Alexandra said simply, her voice thick with emotion. "Because when I'm with you, I don't have to be VP Alexandra Donovan who's always in control and always perfect. I can just be Alex. Because you've shown me what actual strength looks like. Not corporate power plays and million-dollar deals, but showing up every day for the people you love even when it's hard. Because your daughter is amazing and being around both of you makes me want to be better. Because I'm in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, enormous and terrifying and wonderful. "You love me," Marcus's voice cracked on the words, his eyes suddenly stinging with tears. "I love you," Alexandra confirmed, her own eyes bright with unshed tears. "I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but yes. I love you, Marcus Chen. I love your dedication to your daughter, your quiet strength, the way you make me laugh, how you see past all my walls. And if you need time before you can say it back, that's okay. I'm not going anywhere." But Marcus didn't need time because the truth had been building in his chest for weeks now, waiting for him to be brave enough to acknowledge it, to believe he deserved it. "I love you too. God help me, I love you too, Alexandra." Alexandra kissed him then, deep and claiming and full of promise, pouring 3 years of his loneliness and her own into this moment of connection. Her lips moved against his with a passion that stole his breath, and Marcus kissed her back with everything he had, every fear and hope and desperate need for this to be real. They made love that night on Marcus's worn couch, slowly and sweetly, learning each other's bodies with reverent hands and whispered promises. Alexandra's skin was soft and warm beneath his touch, and she gasped his name like a prayer when he kissed the hollow of her throat. Marcus learned that she had a small scar on her left hip from a childhood bike accident, that she was ticklish just below her ribs, that she made this beautiful sound when he touched her just right. And afterward, tangled together under a blanket with the city lights filtering through the window, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope for a future that included more than just survival. Hope that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to have this. Allowed to be both a good father and a man with his own needs and desires. Allowed to build something beautiful with this woman who had somehow seen past all his walls to the person beneath. The following months were a whirlwind of legal meetings about Sarah's visitation requests, therapy sessions for Lily to help her process her mother's return, and navigating the complex reality of co-parenting with someone who'd been absent for years. It was hard, watching Lily struggle with conflicting emotions about her mother's return, dealing with Sarah's lawyer trying to push for more custody time, managing the stress of it all while still maintaining work responsibilities. But Alexandra was there for all of it. She went to legal meetings even though she wasn't technically family, her sharp mind catching details that Marcus missed in his emotional fog. She sat with Marcus through therapy sessions when the therapist wanted to discuss co-parenting strategies, her hand in his providing silent support. She learned Lily's favorite foods and her school schedule and the name of every kid in her class. She became, gradually and naturally, part of their family. 6 months after that first kiss in the office, Marcus received an offer he'd been working toward for years. A promotion to senior analyst with a significant pay increase. It meant more responsibility, occasionally longer hours, but also financial stability he'd only dreamed about. Better health insurance that would cover Lily's braces when she needed them. The ability to put real money into Lily's college fund. Maybe even save up for that trip to the ocean he'd always dreamed of taking her on. He brought the offer letter home and stared at it on his kitchen table, a surreal mix of triumph and terror coursing through him. That evening when Alexandra came over for dinner, a regular occurrence now, her toothbrush in his bathroom and a drawer of her clothes in his bedroom. Marcus showed her the letter with trembling hands. "This is incredible," Alexandra said, reading it over, her face breaking into a proud smile. "Senior analyst, 20% salary increase, full benefits package. Marcus, this is everything you've been working for. I'm so proud of you." "I know," Marcus said, running his hand through his hair anxiously. "But the hours, they want someone who can stay late occasionally, who can travel for client meetings a few times a year. I don't know if I can do that with Lily." Alexandra set down the letter and took both of Marcus's hands in hers, her grip firm and sure. "Yes, you can, because you have help now. We'll figure out the logistics. Mrs. Patterson can do more evenings. I can adjust my schedule to be there when you can't. We can look into a different after-school program with later hours if needed. We'll make it work, Marcus." "I can't ask you to." "You're not asking," Alexandra interrupted firmly, her green eyes intense. "I'm offering, Marcus, I'm in this all in. That means helping you take opportunities that are good for you and for Lily. It means being a partner, not just when it's easy, but when it requires real work and sacrifice. Let me do this. Let us build something together." Marcus looked at the woman across from him, this person who had somehow become essential to his existence, who loved him and his daughter with a fierceness that still took his breath away, and felt that last defensive wall crumble into dust. "Okay," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "Okay, yes, I'll take the promotion, we'll figure it out together." Alexandra's smile was radiant, transforming her face with pure joy. "We will, I promise, and Marcus, I'm so damn proud of you. You've worked so hard for this. You deserve every bit of it." 1 year after that first kiss, Marcus stood in Alexandra's penthouse apartment, though they'd been talking about finding a house together, something with a yard for Lily and enough space for all of them, looking out at the Chicago skyline at sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink and gold, and the city spread out below like a glittering promise. Behind him, he could hear Lily and Alexandra in the kitchen, working together on some elaborate dessert recipe that would probably end in a flower fight and laughter, their voices mixing in easy companionship. This had become their life. Shared custody of Lily with Sarah, who, to her credit, was genuinely working hard to be a better parent and rebuild her relationship with her daughter. Career success and financial stability, and a relationship that had deepened into something Marcus had never thought possible. "Daddy, come help," Lily called, her voice bright with laughter. "Alex is trying to make the frosting, but it's too runny again." Alex. They'd landed on that nickname naturally over the months, a way for Lily to show affection without the pressure of more formal titles. Alexandra had tears in her eyes the first time Lily used it, understanding the significance of that small intimacy. Marcus turned from the window and joined them in the kitchen, where Alexandra was indeed struggling with frosting that looked more like glaze, and Lily was providing very serious advice on the proper sugar-to-butter ratio, her brow furrowed in concentration. "You need a hand?" Marcus asked, wrapping his arms around Alexandra from behind, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I need an actual pastry chef," Alexandra said ruefully, leaning back into his embrace. "But I'll settle for you and your brilliant daughter." They worked together to salvage the frosting, the three of them moving around each other with the ease of practice, of family. Later, after dessert, which was delicious despite the frosting crisis. And after Lily was settled in what had become her room at Alexandra's place, painted lavender at Lily's request and decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, the two of them sat on the balcony under the stars, wrapped in a blanket against the cool evening air. "I have something for you," Alexandra said, her voice carrying a hint of nervousness that immediately caught Marcus's attention. "Alexandra, it's not what you think," Alexandra said quickly, though her hand was shaking slightly as she reached into her pocket. "Or it is, but not yet. I know we need more time, that Lily needs to be ready, that there are logistics to figure out, but I wanted you to have this." She opened her hand to reveal a key, simple, silver, ordinary. But the meaning behind it was anything but ordinary. "Move in with me," Alexandra said, her green eyes earnest and hopeful and slightly terrified. "You and Lily, not right away, we'll take our time, do it right, make sure Lily's comfortable with the transition. But I want you here. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to help Lily with her homework at this kitchen table. I want us to be a family, officially and completely." Marcus took the key with hands that trembled, feeling the weight of it, not just the physical object but everything it represented. A future together, a life built on partnership and love and trust. "You're sure this is a big step? Lily comes with toys and noise and chaos and space posters everywhere. Your perfect showroom apartment is going to get very lived in very quickly." "I'm counting on it," Alexandra said with a smile that lit up her whole face. "Marcus, I don't want a showroom. I want a home. And home is wherever you and Lily are. I want her science projects on the kitchen counter and her drawings on the refrigerator and her giggles echoing through these rooms. I want family movie nights and homework help and Sunday morning pancakes. I want all of it." Marcus kissed her, pouring 3 years of loneliness, 1 year of love, and a lifetime of hope into it. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were teary-eyed and grinning like idiots. "Yes," Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes, we'll move in. But you're helping me pack and we're getting actual bookshelves for all of Lily's chapter books, and we need to set up a proper homework station with good lighting, and whatever you want," Alexandra promised, her hand cradling his face with infinite tenderness. "Everything you want. You and Lily are my everything, Marcus. I'd give you the world if I could." "I don't need the world," Marcus said softly, covering her hand with his. "I just need this, us. Whatever we're building here. We're building a family," Alexandra said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's what this is, that's what we are." And standing on that balcony under the Chicago stars, with the woman he loved and their daughter sleeping safely inside, Marcus finally let himself believe it. His life hadn't turned out anything like he'd planned. Single parenthood at 29, struggling to make ends meet, building walls to protect a heart that had been shattered. But then a woman in a corner office had kissed him, had seen past the walls to the person beneath, and had decided that Marcus was worth the risk. They'd shocked everyone. The office had been full of gossip when their relationship became public, colleagues whispering about whether it was appropriate for the VP to date her subordinate. The society pages had run articles about Alexandra Donovan dating a single father who worked in her department, speculation about whether it would last. Sarah had tried to use it against Marcus in custody negotiations, claiming he was prioritizing his love life over Lily. But they'd weathered all of it together, proving that what they had was real and strong and worth fighting for. 18 months after that first kiss, Marcus stood in a judge's chambers, a place he'd been too many times during the custody battle with Sarah, but this time was different. This time it wasn't about fighting to keep what he had. This time it was about building something new. Alexandra stood beside him, both of them in their best clothes, him in the navy suit Alexandra had helped him pick out, her in an elegant cream dress that made her look like something out of a classic film. Lily sat in a chair nearby, swinging her legs and looking simultaneously excited and nervous, clutching the stuffed Saturn planet Alexandra had bought her all those months ago at the museum. The judge, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who'd presided over many of their custody hearings, smiled at them warmly. "Well, this is certainly the happiest reason I've had to see you three. Miss Donovan, you're sure about this?" "Absolutely certain," Alexandra said without hesitation, her hand tight in Marcus's. "This is what I want, what we all want." "And Lily," the judge said, turning to the 9-year-old who was trying very hard to look grown-up and mature. "You understand what this means. Miss Donovan isn't replacing your mom, you'll still see her on your regular schedule. But she is officially becoming your parent too, with all the legal rights and responsibilities that entails. How do you feel about that?" Lily looked at Alexandra with absolute trust and affection, her dark eyes serious. "She's already my parent, this just makes it official with the law. Can I call her mom now?" Because I have my birth mom, but Alex has been here for everything, helping with homework and coming to my science fair and taking care of me when I'm sick. That's what moms do, right? Alexandra's eyes filled with tears, something Marcus had seen more of in the past year than probably the entire rest of her life combined. Her voice was thick when she responded, barely holding it together. You can call me whatever you want, sweetheart, whatever feels right to you. Cool, Lily said with 9-year-old pragmatism, though her own eyes were bright with emotion. Because I've been wanting to, but I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. The judge was smiling now, clearly moved by the exchange. Well then, let's make it official. She signed the papers that made Alexandra Donovan legally responsible for Lily Chen, not a custody battle, not a fight, just love made official through the power of second-parent adoption. Outside the courthouse, they took pictures, wonderful messy family photos where everyone was grinning and Lily insisted on being in the middle, holding both of their hands, her face split by a gap-toothed smile. Marcus looked at his family, because that's what they were now, officially and completely and legally, and felt something settle in his chest. Peace. Contentment, joy. Thank you, he said to Alexandra as they walked to the car, Lily running ahead to press the unlock button because she loved being trusted with that responsibility. For what? Alexandra asked, genuinely confused, adjusting her purse on her shoulder. For seeing me, Marcus said, stopping her on the courthouse steps, people flowing around them. For that first kiss in your office that shocked everyone, including me. For not letting me push you away when I was scared. For loving not just me, but Lily too. For building this family with us. For every single day of this past year and a half. Alexandra stopped walking, pulled Marcus into her arms right there on the courthouse steps where anyone could see, and kissed him, tender and sweet and full of the promise of all the days ahead of them. When she pulled back, her green eyes were bright with tears and joy. I should be thanking you, Alexandra said against his lips. You taught me what actually matters, not the corner office or the salary or the magazine covers. You taught me that home is people, not places. That love is showing up every day, even when it's hard. That family isn't just about blood, it's about choice and commitment and showing up. That the best things in life are worth fighting for. So we're both grateful, Marcus said with a smile, tucking a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear. That works. Moms, come on, Lily called from the car, and both adults froze, then started laughing through their tears. I'm hungry and you said we could get pizza to celebrate. Moms, Alexandra repeated softly, wonder in her voice as she tested out the title. She called us moms. Both of us? You okay with that? Marcus asked, searching her face. I'm more than okay with that, Alexandra said, her voice breaking. That's the best thing anyone's ever called me. They walked to where Lily was waiting, and the three of them piled into the car, Alexandra's BMW that now had a booster seat permanently installed in the back and usually had a few of Lily's books and toys scattered in the footwell. They drove to their favorite pizza place. Not fancy, just good, with red vinyl booths and a jukebox that still worked. And celebrated a family that had been built not by blood or obligation, but by choice and love and courage. That night back in the house they'd moved into 3 months ago. A 3-bedroom in a good school district with a yard where Lily could play and a home office for both of them. Marcus stood in the doorway of Lily's room and watched Alexandra read her a bedtime story. His daughter was tucked in with her stuffed elephant and her new stuffed Saturn, hanging on every word of the book about space exploration that Alexandra was reading with enthusiasm, doing all the voices. This was his life now. Not the one he'd planned, not the one he'd imagined during those dark days after Sarah left, but something better, something real and messy and beautiful. Alexandra finished the story and kissed Lily's forehead. Good night, sweetheart. Love you too, Mom, Lily said sleepily. The title still new enough that both she and Alexandra got a little emotional every time, though they were trying to play it cool. Alexandra joined Marcus in the hallway, and they walked to their bedroom, their shared space in a shared life, and got ready for bed with the comfortable routine of people who have learned each other's rhythms. Later, lying in bed with Marcus's head on her chest, listening to the steady beat of her heart, Alexandra said, "Do you ever think about that day in my office, when I kissed you?" All the time, Marcus admitted, his arm wrapped around her waist. I think about how terrified I was, how sure I was that it would be a disaster. Are you still terrified? Marcus considered the question honestly. Sometimes, I'm scared something will happen to mess this all up. I'm scared I'll wake up and it will have been a dream. But mostly, he propped himself up on his elbow to look at her, to see her face in the dim light filtering through their curtains. Mostly, I'm just grateful. You took a risk on us, Alexandra, and it paid off. We built something incredible. We built something perfect, Alexandra corrected, her hand coming up to cup his cheek. Imperfectly perfect. And we're going to keep building it every day for the rest of our lives. Is that a promise? Marcus asked with a smile. It's a vow, Alexandra said seriously, her green eyes intense even in the darkness. One I intend to make official as soon as I figure out the perfect way to propose. Marcus's breath caught, his heart suddenly racing. Alexandra, I know, we're still adjusting to living together, to the adoption, Alexandra said quickly, her own excitement making her words tumble out faster. But I want you to know that's where this is headed for me. Marriage forever, all of it, when you're ready. Marcus kissed her, long and deep and full of all the love he'd learned to feel again, all the hope he'd learned to hold on to. I'm ready, he whispered against her lips. Whenever you are, whatever you're planning, I'm ready. They fell asleep tangled together, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances and built something beautiful out of courage and hope and love. The proposal came 3 months later, and it was perfect in its imperfection. Alexandra had apparently planned something elaborate, a romantic dinner at the restaurant where they'd had their first date, complete with musicians and roses and a carefully rehearsed speech. But Lily came down with the flu that day, and all plans were canceled in favor of ginger ale and soup and movies on the couch. Alexandra seemed disappointed as they settled in for a quiet evening at home, but Marcus didn't mind. This was their life, plans changed, kids got sick, and you rolled with it. That was what partnership meant, what family meant. At around 8 p.m., after Lily had finally fallen asleep and they were cleaning up the kitchen, Alexandra suddenly said, "Screw it. This isn't how I planned this, but nothing with us has gone according to plan, and that's been the best part." She got down on one knee right there in the kitchen, next to the dishwasher and the pile of dirty soup bowls, and pulled out a ring box from the pocket of her jeans. She'd apparently been carrying it around all day, waiting for the right moment that never came. Marcus Chen, you've taught me more about love and family and what actually matters than I learned in my entire life before I met you. You've made me a better person, a better partner, and somehow, miraculously, a mother. I don't want to spend another day not being officially, legally, completely yours. Will you marry me? Marcus was crying before she even finished, nodding frantically through his tears. Yes. Yes, of course, yes, you impossible woman. The ring was beautiful, simple platinum band with a small diamond, elegant but not ostentatious, perfectly Marcus. It fit perfectly, and Marcus stared at it on his finger like it was the most precious thing he'd ever seen. I love you, Marcus said, pulling Alexandra up and into his arms, kissing her with everything he had. I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes. Good terrified or bad terrified? Alexandra asked with a watery smile, her own tears streaming down her face. The best kind of terrified, Marcus clarified, echoing a conversation they'd had what felt like a lifetime ago. The kind that means I have something precious to lose, which means I have something precious in the first place. They kissed there in the kitchen, and it felt like every kiss they'd shared before, the first one in Alexandra's office when she'd shocked them both, the tentative ones during early dates when they were still learning each other, the passionate ones after finally admitting their feelings, the comfortable ones of established partnership. All of it was contained in this moment, all of their history and all of their future wrapped up in this kiss, this promise, this life they were building together. The wedding was 6 months later, a medium-sized ceremony in a beautiful garden venue outside Chicago. Lily was the flower girl and took her duties very seriously, scattering rose petals with the precision of a scientist conducting an important experiment. Sarah was there too. They'd reached a point of respectful co-parenting, and Marcus had decided that holding on to anger wasn't worth the energy. She seemed genuinely happy for them, which was as much as he could ask for. Marcus's vows made everyone cry, his voice strong despite the tears streaming down his own face. Alexandra, you saw me when I felt invisible. You loved me when I'd forgotten how to be lovable. You chose my daughter and me when we were a package deal that most people would have seen as too complicated. You turned that kiss in your office, the one that shocked everyone, including me, into a lifetime of kisses, and I'm so grateful for every single one. I promise to build this life with you, to show up every day, to love you in the easy times and the hard ones. Thank you for being my partner, my love, my home. Alexandra's vows were equally emotional, her voice breaking multiple times. Marcus, meeting you was the best accident of my life. Well, kissing you was the accident. Meeting you I'd like to think was fate. You've shown me that success isn't measured in deals closed or money made, but in good-night kisses and homework help and lazy Sunday mornings. You've given me a family I didn't know I needed and a love I didn't think existed. I promise to honor that gift every day for the rest of my life. I promise to be the partner you deserve, the mother Lily deserves, and the woman I've always wanted to be. I love you both more than words can express." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden, even the photographer was sniffling. 5 years after that first kiss, Marcus stood in the kitchen of their home, the three-bedroom they'd bought together, now with addition plans drawn up for a fourth bedroom because they'd been approved as foster parents and were waiting for their first placement, making breakfast. Lily was at the table doing homework, 14 now, and dealing with high school drama with the same directness she'd shown as a 7-year-old. Alexandra was reading the newspaper and occasionally stealing pieces of bacon from the pan, and everything was ordinary and perfect all at once. "Mom," Lily said, looking up from her math homework, and both Marcus and Alexandra looked up simultaneously, which made Lily roll her eyes in that particularly teenage way. "I meant Mom A. Did you know that the universe is constantly expanding? Like every second the space between galaxies gets bigger. Isn't that wild, Alexandra?" Mom A to differentiate from Sarah, who was Mom S. A system they developed that worked for all of them, set down her newspaper and gave Lily her full attention, something Marcus still loved about her after all these years. "It is wild, makes you think about how much we don't know about the universe, about what's still out there to discover." "Exactly," Lily said, warming to her subject with the enthusiasm she brought to all things science-related. "Like we're so small in comparison, you know, but also we're here and we're thinking about it and trying to understand it, which is pretty cool when you think about it." Marcus listened to them talk, flipping pancakes and feeling a contentment so deep it was almost painful. He thought about the man he'd been 5 years ago, exhausted, lonely, convinced that his life would always be about survival rather than joy, that he'd never risk his heart again. He thought about that kiss in the corner office, about how terrified he'd been, how sure that it would end in disaster. He thought about all the moments since then, the fears he'd had to face, the walls he'd had to dismantle, the leap of faith he'd had to take. It had been worth it. Every scary moment, every difficult conversation, every risk, it had all been worth it to get to this. To a kitchen full of laughter and breakfast smells and the people he loved most in the world. "Babe, pancakes are burning," Alexandra said mildly, breaking through Marcus's reverie with an amused smile. Marcus flipped the pancakes, only slightly scorched, and plated them. They ate breakfast together, talking about Lily's upcoming science fair project, something involving renewable energy and solar panels. And the fundraiser Alexandra was helping organize and Marcus's presentation next week to potential new clients. Ordinary conversation about an ordinary day in an extraordinary life. Later, after Lily had left for school and Alexandra was getting ready for a meeting, Marcus caught his wife in the hallway and pulled her in for a kiss. The kind of casual, affectionate kiss that came from years of partnership. "What was that for?" Alexandra asked, smiling against his lips, her hands automatically coming up to rest on his chest. "Just remembering," Marcus said, his arms wrapped around her waist. "That kiss in your office. How shocked everyone was, how shocked I was, how it changed everything. I'm glad you took that risk." "Best decision I ever made," Alexandra said immediately, her green eyes soft with love and memories. "Well, second best. Marrying you was the best, and becoming Lily's mom, okay, maybe it's tied for best. And fostering," Marcus prompted, thinking of the teenager who would be joining their family next month, another kid who needed a safe place and people who would show up. "That's not a decision, that's a privilege," Alexandra said seriously, her hand coming up to cup his cheek. "But yes, all of it, Marcus, every moment with you and our family, it's the best thing I've ever done. The best thing I'll ever do." They stood there for a moment, just holding each other in the hallway of their home, both of them remembering the journey that had brought them here. From that corner office to this hallway, from a single impulsive kiss to a lifetime of kisses, from shock and fear to love and family. "I love you," Marcus said, the words as easy now as breathing, as natural as his heartbeat. "I love you too," Alexandra responded, kissing him again, soft and sweet. "Always have, always will." And in the end, that was the real shock, not the kiss itself, but what it had led to. That a moment of courage could transform into a lifetime of love. That two people from completely different worlds could build a bridge between them and meet in the middle, creating something new and beautiful in the process. That a struggling single dad and his powerful boss could become a family, complete and whole and happy. The kiss had shocked everyone. The love story it started had been even more surprising. But the happiness they'd built together. That was the most shocking thing of all, that despite all the obstacles, all the reasons it shouldn't have worked, all the complications and challenges, it did. They did. and they would continue to every day for the rest of their lives. Because sometimes, the best things in life start with a risk. With one person being brave enough to reach for what they want, and another person being brave enough to reach back. With a kiss in an office that changed everything, that opened a door to a future neither of them could have imagined but both of them had been searching for. And Marcus Chen, standing in his kitchen on an ordinary Tuesday morning 5 years later, surrounded by the family he'd built and the love he'd found, knew with absolute certainty that he would make the same choice again. Would kiss her back again, would take that terrifying leap of faith again. Because this messy, beautiful, imperfect life they'd created together was worth every moment of fear, every risk, every shock. It was worth everything.